Hey guys, what's up? Dominic Abassi here for the BCFC. I hope you're really enjoying your Labor Day weekend as we take the midseason bye week in the British Columbia Football Conference. Now, one thing that you might want to do is you're hopefully hanging out, relaxing on this long weekend. Check out bcfootballconference.com and the section BCFC Musings. Now, the latest contributor, Blake Roberts, has decided to take a look at what could happen, some predictions for the final half of the season. They're really interesting stuff there. And I would defy anyone really to argue with those predictions. I think they're going to be pretty spot on. Instead of looking ahead, though, I wanted to look back. And just a few of the things that have really stood out to me in the first half of this season so far. The Okanagan Sun. I'm not, and I'm sure a lot of people aren't surprised to see them in first place. They're 5-0. This organization, this franchise has been there before many times. I just got my first look live at the Sun before the bye week as they really handed it to the Raiders in Nanaimo. And what stood out to me was the defense of the Sun. Nasty group, really stout across the front, the line of scrimmage in their front seven. Eli Haynes, Sean Robinson were living in the backfield. These guys are elite level linebackers at the junior football level. Connor Richard, he might be a little bit hesitant to get in front of the camera for an interview. He's not hesitant to get in the middle of the pile and stick his hat in there. He is a very aggressive, fun player to watch. One of the more notable defensive players in the conference, in my opinion. The only offense I have seen, and I've seen every team except for Valley and Langley, the only offense I've seen that could really scare that Sun defense, test them a bit, would be the West Shore Rebels. And every single time I talk to Charlie Cardalicchia, their head coach, on the phone, he says, I'm just on the way to the airport, and as he puts it, picking up another blue chipper. So he's still recruiting, he's still adding pieces, but Trey Campbell, Deshaun Greenaway, Baranu Yitna, Kane Stevenson, that Rebel offense is making life, I think, a little easier on Scott Borden at the quarterback position, allowing him to maybe play a little bit more relaxed. And they are a very scary group that can put up points in a big way. And that's what you'll have to do to beat the Sun, because they might not have a dynamic offense. Certainly haven't seen them at full strength with Keith Zyla not in, but I think that it's going to be hard to score points against Okanagan, and the Rebels, to me, look like the team that can do that in perhaps a really big game. Now, speaking of changing games, as those Rebels players are game changers, I don't think that Raiders receiver Bryson Mayo is getting enough credit for what he's doing so far in this season. Leading the league in total yards, 1,108, and touchdowns, with 8 total touchdowns. He's averaging 221 all-purpose yards per game across all facets, special teams, and offense. That is monster production. He's set a new record with the longest play in BCFC history, and his stats are trending or projecting onto some totals, numbers put up by guys like James Green, who a lot of people who are historians of the league will know he was just a dynamic, game-changing player that the Okanagan Sun had in the early 2000s. So when you're in conversation with players like that, that's a pretty great company to keep. Other names that do deserve mentioning, and these are not because I picked them as favorites, these are the league leaders in stats, statistically, at their positions. Jake LeBerge of the Raiders, leading the league in passing yards, tied for the league lead in touchdowns with 10, and I would be amiss if I didn't mention Nick Wenman in this conversation as well from the Sun, because Wenman is tied with LeBerge in touchdowns with 10, leading the league in quarterback efficiency rating. And that's despite the fact he didn't start in week 1 and wasn't supposed to be the starter for the Okanagan Sun. He's done a wonderful job up there in Kelowna as well. Trey Campbell leads the league in rushing for the Rebels, and he missed a couple of games with an injury as well. He's the best back in the league. I don't think you can really argue that. Nathaniel Anderson of the Sun leads the league in receiving yards, despite being in a pretty conservative offense for the first half of the season. Aldrich Barrios of the Sun leads the league in picks with 5, 4 of those in one game. Desmond Jeanson from the Valley Huskers leading the league in defensive points, as he has compiled the most points. I think has 30 total tackles as well. And kickers, who evidently are real people too, if you insist. James Parker of the Raiders leading the league, 90% efficiency on his field goal attempts so far. So far this season. Now, as Dennis Green would say, they are what we thought they were. I think based on some of the preseason projections that I heard and saw on bcfootballconference.com, most of the teams are pretty much where you would expect them to be. I think based on the predictions, the Raiders have played better than you would have thought, and the Rams probably a little bit worse. Now, one thing that has really stood out to me in the first half of this season is I've got a chance to converse and meet players from all the programs around the league, to interview them, get to know these kids. The quality of the athlete in the BCFC right now really stood out to me. And look, I played in 2003 to 2006, and it's not to say we didn't have quality athletes at that time, but these kids now are focused. They're motivated on a goal. They're student athletes. They have full-time jobs. They're contributing members of their communities, and a lot of them are focused on a very set path. They are seeing junior football as a path to the CFL, to pro football, and I think that that's a big change that I see, is that players are coming into the BCFC and seeing it as a legitimate stepping stone and part of the path to move on to pro football. That's a conversation I'm hearing quite a lot, and it's really impressive to me to hear kids at this young age talking with that kind of focus, and that's just a little bit of insight into the kind of athlete that you can see competing every weekend on a BCFC field. Now, if you haven't been out to a BCFC park yet, you're missing out on some incredible plays, some incredible stats being put up by really kids who are playing some high-level football. Thanks to everyone who's been tuning in to BCFCTV.com, powered by Remax. I know every broadcast hasn't been perfect. There have been some technical issues, as you would expect. A lot of these parks are not set up to be broadcasting live quality on the internet, but we're going to keep working towards the goal of perfection. That's always the goal, and we appreciate everyone that's been with us to watch these games so far. You'll see me again in a few days. I'll be right back quickly to set up week 6, but just wanted to take some time, pass along a few first half thoughts, and hopefully everyone's really enjoying their Labor Day. For the BCFC, I'm Dominic Abassi.